I want to take a second just to circle back around to a topic that we tackled in a previous podcast, and that is relationships. And debt and career pursuits will affect any home, any person, any family. But I want to talk about something that was brought to my attention a few weeks ago by a friend of mine. And just a little backstory, she and I both grew up in a very similar type of home, a very similar background religiously. Our beliefs are were very intertwined in how we were brought up. And so there was a heavy importance put on marriage and spouse and who you married and how faithful they were. And this is not, let me give a heads up, this is not a religious podcast. I'm not going to talk about religion in depth here, nor talk about anything theological or start an argument or debate. I do not do that and will not do that. This is about relationships and about how it goes back to a college and career choice. So she asked me, what would you do if you were in this situation? Because we really want our daughter to find a spouse that has the same faith. And so we're thinking about sending her to this college, and that college is a faith-based university. It's where the parents both went and they met. And I heard the same conversation when I was going to college. My parents wanted to send me to the identical college, the exact same place. I didn't go. I fought it for a lot of reasons. I fought a lot of things when I was a teenager. Still do. Um, Fantastic quality I have. But she asked me, what would you do? Because she wants to do this for a career, which was in healthcare. And but we're also concerned that if she doesn't go to this university, she won't find a spouse that fits or that aligns with our faith. Because we wanted to have a solid marriage. Alignment on faith is and matters of faith. It does matter. It absolutely matters. It can cause lots of friction in a marriage. But it struck me because having worked in healthcare and having worked in education and done this for many, many years now, not that I'm old, but I have a lot of time of experience and various levels of experience in seeing all of this stuff and seeing how generations are changed, how families are changed, how many single moms there are. And this is in the least sexist way. I'm saying this from data and from experience in overseeing healthcare programs for the state of Alabama. So many single moms that are going back to school, nursing predominantly, and they're single because they have their spouse left, walked out, died, whatever it is. And so they have children to care for. And so this friend asked me this question: what would you do with your daughter in that instance? Or what's your advice? Because she knows what I do on the side with Project 2 Million, and what I do with this podcast, and what I teach people, and what I coach people with and towards, and my opinions on careers and debt, and my experience in healthcare. So she asked me, what would you do? And I said, well, my honest answer is, in matters of faith, faith starts in the home, and a spouse can come from anywhere. Going to a college to hope for a spouse is a good hope. But going towards a career and spending close to $150,000 to get a degree, nursing, an RN. And at a university, it's a BSN. At a community college, it's an RN. Same practical scope, same duties, same skills, no change in pay, no greater job availability, no greater career mobility. The way nursing goes now, there is zero benefit to having a BSN, to going to the university and coming out with and putting down tuition. And she told me we wouldn't be able to pay for all this. So she would have debt. So $150,000, let's say the parents pay $50,000 of it. Still $100,000. She goes and meets a spouse who is also there at the same school pursuing the same 4-year degree, which he'll probably have to spend more on something after, because the current market is not great for a bachelor's degree to get you any sort of job. It helps, but there are too many available master's degrees, and there's too much competition out there, and college degrees are so doable that professional school or technical trade has such a high value. You're going to face a lot of competition out there with just a bachelor's degree. So you send your daughter off to nursing school at this private school in hopes that she finds a spouse. She comes out with $100,000 in student debt. She's got the RN credential. It's fantastic. But she also finds a spouse who is also $100,000, maybe even more, $1,000 in debt. So then you have two spouses, a married couple that's starting their marriage $200,000 plus in debt. That is not solid footing. In fact, if you just take the spouse out of it, if you're a student hearing this, I hope you can grab this if you can understand the concept of debt. Would you like it if your parents had said, it's time for you to leave? By the way, here's a payment on something that for the next 10 years minimum for $200,000, $100,000. Okay. Is there anything to go with it? It's a little different than being gifted a house that you can sell if you can't pay for it, or a car. Here, I bought you, I paid for part of the car. Here's the car. Here's the note to the car. Here's the monthly payment. Pay it if you can't, but if you can't pay it, then you sell it, get something different. You can't do that with a college degree. You can't sell your degree. You can't return the degree. There's very, very few ways to get out of having to pay it off. So was it worth it to go to school to find a spouse only to know that that spouse that they found likely had a significant amount of debt also, because the generation now that has kids going to college is in so much debt from their pursuit that there are two working spouses, and they're working like they are to chase a big house, chase a fancy car, multiple cars, and also to pay off their own loan debt because they were told by their parents, have a better life than me. Do better. Find college. Get a degree. A degree is something you'll never regret. Nobody can take that away from you. And sadly, that's true. Nobody can take it away from you. And sometimes I think there's some wishing that somebody could, or maybe it's an undoing. I wish I could undo this. I wish I would have known. There's research to back this in healthcare. I wish literally qualitative studies. So that means somebody did a survey or an interview and got feedback and processed it and said, this is what's going on in these people, in this population that was interviewed. I wish that I would have known. I wish I would have known how hard I was going to have to work to pay this off. I wish I would have known what my monthly payment was going to be. I never see my spouse. And no, I'm not making this up. I have less time with my kids. Why? Why would you want to have your kids go through that to start a marriage knowing that finances are the biggest problem, the greatest crack creator, not crack the drug, crack in the marriage creator? Finances are the largest source of fights in a marriage. The largest source, the greatest source, biggest source, whatever synonym you want to use there, for dissonance, for disconnect, for problems in a marriage, money. So this podcast is not going to be very long. I'm finishing it with a question. when it comes to relationships, going back to the first podcast about relationships, how does the amount of debt in your career pursuit affect your relationships? The first time we talked about how working parents aren't saving enough for their kids, not enough time with kids, not enough time with peers because you're working so much. You start to lose your ability to be social because you don't have the money and you don't have the time because you're working so hard to pay off the debt. Picking up an extra shift here at the hospital, picking up a weekend here, seeing patients on the side, doing a full time, another a side gig. But now we're talking about marriage. So what's more important to me? Part of why I wanted to do Project 2 Million was to change generations. And that was a financial change. Started out being a financial change. The research that I did, the career comparison and retirement contributions between a couple of healthcare professions and their equivalent from associate's degree to graduate degree equaled $2 million or more, depending on the profession, in favor of the technical college degree, the 2-year degree, because of the lower cost, the less debt, the earlier investment, the earlier beginning of income. It created this extra $2 million cushion. And so I thought, this has to be taught to somebody. Students need to know this, that nobody's doing this. There's a lot of it after the fact. There are programs within certain universities and certain healthcare programs that teach you how to get out of debt. I don't want to stop it. I want to change generations and teach students to say, here are the best pathways. Here's how to get in. Here's how to do this career so you can not be bearing a burden the rest of your life. You can provide better care. You can be healthier. You can thrive in your life. You can actually live better with your family. It was all related to numbers. I can save more. But now we're talking about marital stability. It is nothing new. Nothing new. Find any financial guru, Dave Ramsey, Susie Orman, you name it, pick one. And they're all going to tell you, read a book, read articles, go Google Scholar on it and find debt will crush a marriage. So you might be a parent hashing this out. What are we going to do with our kid? They need a better life. You might be a student that's saying, I don't even care about my spouse at this point. I just want this career. Which, by the way, if you go into healthcare and you're working healthcare type hours, the most people you're going to spend your time around are other healthcare workers. And that's likely going to be where you run into a spouse. Not guaranteed by any means. It's possible that you would find a spouse in healthcare, and it's possible they would be carrying the same debt load as you. So what if all these generations of married people, these spouses from healthcare, they came together and they were changed forever? Okay, I'm starting to sound like a movie trailer or something. But the point is, changing how debt is viewed when it comes to fostering strong marriages. That's something we all should be thinking about. Thanks for being here on the Project 2 Million podcast.